Hey everybody, we've got huge signing news that came out last night as the reigning Calder Trophy winner and one of the biggest RFAs of this offseason, Kirill Kaprizov, has finally agreed to a deal with the Minnesota Wild. It's a 5-year deal paying him $9 million per season, and thus comes to an end one of the most contentious contract negotiations of this entire offseason. But right on the doorstep of training camp, Kaprizov and the Wild get it done, and he'll be staying in Minnesota for the foreseeable future. Before we get fully into it, I just ask you to please subscribe and hit that thumbs up. It helps out so much and is greatly appreciated. But what a contract negotiation this turned out to be. Obviously, it took all off season to finally get done, and there was a lot of talks about Kaprizov wanting 10 plus million per season. There was a lot, Minnesota didn't want to pay that. There was the threats of him going back to Russia and playing in the KHL. And there was all this back and forth and didn't seem like a lot of progress being made. But as what usually happens when you get down to crunch time and when training camp is right here on the horizon starting up, a deal eventually ends up getting worked out. And you've got to wonder how much of all of this offseason stuff was just the two sides playing hardball. Kaprizov's agent trying to get him the absolute maximum contract he could, using the Russia thing as leverage and just kind of having that in the back pocket to push a little bit closer to their demands and whatnot. And all in all, none of what happened now really matters because the deal is done. And Kaprizov is still playing for the Minnesota Wild and going to be for the foreseeable future. And he's going to be one of their best players for the foreseeable future. And this is huge for Minnesota because this was a playoff team last year. Minnesota had a really good season last year, and they're looking to continue to be a yearly playoff team. And for them to do that, they need Kirill Kaprizov in their lineup. He's a huge part of their offense. So this was a deal that needed to get done, and it did. And now that's absolutely massive for Minnesota, and I really do like the deal overall. Look at Kaprizov here. Last season, he won the Calder Trophy as Rookie of the Year as a 23-year-old. It was his first NHL season, obviously, after playing in the KHL. And he's now 24, plays, obviously, winger for the Minnesota Wild. 5-year deal, $9 million per season. And I like this deal a lot. I've been saying all offseason, there was all these reports about him wanting $10.5 million. I would not have done that after one NHL season. I just don't think, I don't think an intelligent GM can shell out a contract $10+ million after one NHL season. And that's nothing against Kaprizov, and I absolutely love him as a player and think he's going to have a monster year this year and become a consistent 40-goal scorer in the NHL. But just we've seen it in the past where guys have one or two big years and then drop off. And not that I'm saying that that's going to happen with Kaprizov. I just don't think as an NHL GM you can give out a 8-figure contract after one good season. I just don't think that's a smart way to spend money. So I was against them giving him $10+ million. I think $9 million is much more reasonable. And also, then they came down on the years, which I think makes sense. That's your compromise right there. 8-year deal would have had to have been $10+ million, but now you get him at 9 and it's less term. You compromise on the length and it's a 5-year deal. Honestly, I think that this is the kind of deal that needs to happen between Brady Tkachuk and the Ottawa Senators, because there's a lot of talk about Ottawa offering him, $8 million for 8 years or 8.25 for 8 years and him wanting more than that. Well, then compromise and make it a 5 or a 6-year deal and $8.5 million. But that's a topic for another day. Tkachuk is still a RFA, and he and Ottawa are not, don't seem to be that close to coming up with any sort of agreement between the two. But this is exactly the kind of contract that I think needs to happen there. just, if you don't want to give exactly his asking price money-wise, then compromise on the years and make it a little bit shorter. And I think that was a great job on both sides here for a player that absolutely needed to be back in Minnesota. The Kaprizov actually had a lot of leverage here in these negotiations, just because not only did he have the whole "I can go back to Russia" thing, but he also knows how important of a player he is for the Minnesota Wild. And when you look at what he did last year as a rookie, 55 games played, 27 goals, 24 assists for 51 points. He was almost a point-per-game player as a rookie, and he was on pace to score 40-plus goals if it was a full 82-game season. You take that goal-scoring rate of 27 and 55 and push that over to an 82-game season, he's scoring 40 goals. So, obviously, he's a huge part of this team's offense, and they really needed him back to be the same kind of team that they were last year and be a playoff-level team. So getting him back is absolutely huge. And when we look at what I think his potential is for this season in 2021-22, no reason he can't be a 40-goal scorer. I mean, we're going back to a full 82-game season. No reason he can't score 40 goals. He was on pace for it last year. I think he can throw in another 40 or so assists, and he can be an 80-point player. And it would not surprise me if he's a point-per-game guy this year. Would not surprise me at all if he's a point-per-game guy and scores 40 goals this season. I think he's that good. I think he's well worth $9 million per season. And all in all, I like this contract for both sides. Minnesota compromised on the years so they could get the AAV down a little bit from what he wanted. And I think it's going to work out great for both sides. It's a 5-year deal. He'll be 29 when it's up. And, when he's 29, he'll hit unrestricted free agency and be able to sign wherever he would like or do whatever he wants to do at that time. But this is, I think, a really good contract for a very, very important player to this team and somebody that I think is going to have a huge season this year and has all the talent in the world playing for the Minnesota Wild. So, all in all, obviously huge contract, but very well worth it in my opinion. I like the compromise that these two sides came to. I think it makes a lot of sense, and this is kind of the model of a deal that you can use when a compromise needs to be reached. If the team is willing to shorten on the years a little bit, then the player can come down on the money a little bit and still be, he'll be 29 when he hits free agency. He's going to get a pretty big contract that year as well. So I don't think he has to worry about that. But obviously hugely important player for the Minnesota Wild. He is back. Minnesota now has all their guys signed. And they're going to be gearing up to hopefully be a playoff team again this year and potentially go on a playoff run. But with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon merchandise store, donation link, and channel memberships are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll talk to you guys soon.